The classroom buzzed with noise as students chatted before the bell rang. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, and everyone was in a relaxed mood. A girl sat quietly at her desk, flipping through her notebook. She wasn't the loudest in class, but when she spoke, people listened. A boy from the back row leaned forward, smirking. "Hey, what does your mom do for work again?" he asked, his tone teasing. He had heard rumors but didn't believe them. She looked up, calm. "She works at NASA," she said simply. The room erupted in laughter. A few kids exchanged glances, shaking their heads. "Yeah, right," someone called out. "Next, you'll say she flies rockets," another added, snickering. The girl didn't argue. She just smiled slightly and went back to her notes. But the teasing didn't stop. For days, whispers followed her in the hallway. "There goes the NASA kid," someone would say, laughing. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. The school had arranged a special career day, inviting professionals to talk about their jobs. The students didn't know who was coming, it was a surprise. The auditorium was packed, everyone curious. The principal stepped onto the stage. "Today, we have a very special guest," she announced. "A lead aerospace engineer from NASA." The room fell silent. Then, a woman walked out, confident, dressed in a sleek blazer with a NASA badge clipped to her pocket. The girl from class stood up from her seat, waving. "Mom!" The same students who had laughed were now frozen in shock. The woman smiled at her daughter before turning to the crowd. "Good afternoon," she began. "I'm here to tell you about what we do at NASA, and yes, my daughter was telling the truth." The room exploded in murmurs. The boy who had teased her the most sank into his seat, face red. As the woman spoke about rockets, space missions, and her team's work, the students listened intently. Every word held weight now. No one was laughing anymore. And the girl? She just sat there, quietly smiling. She had known the truth all along. The auditorium was completely silent as the woman, NASA engineer and, as everyone now knew, the girl's mom, stood at the podium. A few students shifted in their seats, still processing the shock. The same boy who had laughed the loudest earlier now stared at the floor, his face burning with embarrassment. The woman adjusted the microphone and smiled warmly. "I know some of you didn't believe my daughter when she told you where I worked," she began, her voice calm but firm. "But that's okay. Space is a hard thing to imagine when you've never seen it up close." She tapped a button on her laptop, and the screen behind her lit up with a breathtaking image, Earth from space, a glowing blue marble against the endless black. A collective gasp filled the room. "This is what we see from the International Space Station," she continued. "And this," she switched to another slide, showing a massive rocket mid-launch, flames roaring beneath it, "is what it takes to get there." The students were glued to the screen. Even the teachers looked mesmerized. Then, she told them about her job, how she helped design systems that kept astronauts alive in space, how every bolt, every wire, every line of code had to be perfect because one mistake could mean disaster. She talked about the long nights, the failed tests, the moments of triumph when a mission succeeded. "But the most important thing we do," she said, her voice softening, "is work together. No one gets to space alone. It takes thousands of people, engineers, scientists, even the folks who make sure the coffee in the break room is hot." A few kids chuckled at that. The tension in the room eased. Then, she did something no one expected. She pulled out a small, sealed case and opened it. Inside was a tiny piece of metal. "This," she said, holding it up, "is a fragment from a rocket that actually flew. It's been to space and back." Eyes widened. Hands shot up with questions. "Can we touch it? How hot does it get during re-entry? Have you ever met an astronaut?" She answered everything patiently, even the wildest questions. But the most surprising moment came when the boy who had mocked her daughter earlier raised his hand. "Is it too late to apologize?" he mumbled. The room went quiet again. The woman glanced at her daughter, who gave a small shrug. "It's never too late," the woman said simply. Then, with a knowing look, she added, "But maybe next time, believe someone when they tell you the truth." The bell rang, signaling the end of the session, but no one moved. The students crowded around her, asking for selfies, begging for more stories. The girl stood off to the side, watching as her classmates, who had laughed at her just days ago, now looked at her with something like awe. One girl, who had never spoken to her before, hesitantly approached. "So, your mom is, like, a real-life rocket scientist?" The girl nodded. "Yeah. And she's even cooler than she sounds." As they walked out of the auditorium, the whispers were different now. Not mocking, but amazed. And for the first time, the girl felt like maybe school wouldn't be so hard after all. The next day at school felt different. The girl walked through the halls, and instead of snickers or mocking whispers, she noticed people looking at her, really looking at her. Some smiled nervously. Others quickly glanced away, as if embarrassed by their past behavior. A few even stepped aside to let her pass, like she was suddenly someone important. It should have felt good. But it didn't. Because now, the same people who had ignored her before were acting like they'd known her all along. A boy from her math class, someone who had never even said hello, suddenly slid into the seat next to her. "Hey," he said, grinning. "So, does your mom get free tickets to rocket launches or something?" Before she could answer, another voice cut in. "Ignore him." It was the girl who had approached her after the assembly. "He just wants bragging rights." The boy scowled but didn't deny it. At lunch, things got even weirder. A group from her science class waved her over to their table, a table she'd never been invited to before. "Sit with us," one of them said, scooting aside to make space. She hesitated. Were they being nice because they actually wanted to be friends? Or because her mom's job suddenly made her interesting? She sat down anyway. The questions started immediately. "Does your mom know Elon Musk? Can she get us autographs from astronauts? Have you ever been inside NASA?" She answered as best she could, but with every question, she felt more like a walking NASA trivia card than a person. Then, the teacher's voice cut through the chatter. "Class, settle down." Everyone turned as their science teacher, Mr. Hayes, stood at the front of the room with a bright poster in his hands. "Big announcement," he said. "Our annual Science Innovation Fair is coming up in 4 weeks. And this year's theme is Space and Beyond." A ripple of excitement went through the room. Then, as if on cue, half the class turned to look at her. Mr. Hayes continued, "You'll work in teams of 3 or 4. And the winning project gets a special prize, a private tour of the local aerospace lab, where some real NASA contractors work." The room erupted. Before she could even process the news, hands were tugging at her sleeve. "Be on my team." "No, mine." "I called her first." "You don't even like science." She shrank back in her seat, overwhelmed. Just yesterday, these people hadn't cared if she existed. Now, they were fighting over her like she was the last slice of pizza. Then, a voice cut through the noise. "Maybe she doesn't want to be on your team." Everyone went quiet. It was the girl from the auditorium, the one who had actually talked to her like a normal person. She stood with her arms crossed, glaring at the others. "Did any of you even ask what she wants?" Silence. The girl took a deep breath. "I'll choose my own team," she said firmly. Mr. Hayes nodded, impressed. "All right then. You have until Friday to decide." As the class broke into chatter again, the girl who had stood up for her leaned closer. "For the record," she whispered, "I do want you on my team." But only if you actually want to be. For the first time that day, the girl smiled. Maybe not everyone had an agenda. But as she glanced around the room, she noticed one person who hadn't joined the frenzy, the boy who had laughed the hardest before. He sat alone, scribbling in his notebook, pretending not to care. Yet every few seconds, his eyes flicked toward her. Like he was waiting for something. The next few days were a whirlwind of team sign-ups and project brainstorming. The girl decided to work with the only person who hadn't treated her like a walking NASA ticket, the girl from the auditorium, who introduced herself properly this time. "I'm Ria, by the way," she said, grinning. "And no, I don't just want you for your space connections." They teamed up with two others, a quiet boy named Leo who was obsessed with astronomy, and a hyperactive class clown named Jake who, surprisingly, had a knack for building things. Their first meeting was chaotic. Jake kept suggesting ridiculous ideas, what if we build an actual rocket, while Leo calmly countered with physics facts, we'd need permits. And a lot of fire extinguishers. Ria scribbled notes, trying to wrangle the conversation. The girl hesitated, then spoke up. "What if we focus on something smaller? Like, how astronauts live in space?" The group paused. "That's actually smart," Jake admitted. Leo nodded. "We could simulate life on the ISS, show how they eat, sleep, even go to the bathroom in 0G. Ria wrinkled her nose. "Do we have to include the bathroom part?" "Yes," Jake said solemnly. "For science." They laughed, and for the first time, the girl felt like she belonged. But not everyone was happy. Across the room, the boy who had doubted her before, his name was Tyler, watched them with narrowed eyes. His team consisted of the usual loud, confident kids who always won school competitions. They were already building something elaborate, with wires and blinking lights. At one point, Tyler accidentally bumped into their table, sending their notes fluttering to the floor. "Oops," he said, not sounding sorry at all. Ria shot him a glare. "Real mature." Tyler smirked. "Just saying, if your whole project is just, my mom works at NASA, you might want to try harder." The girl clenched her fists but didn't rise to the bait. She'd heard worse. But later, as she packed up, Tyler lingered by the door. "You know," he said casually, "if you really wanted to prove you're not faking, you'd get your mom to give us a tour of NASA. Then I'd believe you." She froze. That wasn't just a dig, it was a challenge. And the worst part? She couldn't just ask her mom for favors like that. NASA wasn't a theme park. That night, she slumped at the kitchen table while her mom stirred a pot of pasta. "Tough day?" her mom asked. She sighed. "Just, people being weird." Again. Her mom nodded knowingly. "Let me guess. Now they want something from you? And they think I'm lying unless I show them proof." She hesitated. "One kid even said I should get you to give them a NASA tour." Her mom laughed, not unkindly, but like the idea was absurd. "Honey, I can't just give tours to anyone who asks. There are rules. Security clearances. Layers of paperwork." "I know," she mumbled. But then her mom paused, thoughtful. "But, there is something else." She looked up. "What?" Her mom smiled. "How'd you like to show them proof yourself?" The next morning, the girl walked into school with a small, sealed envelope. She didn't say a word about it, not even to Ria. But when Tyler made another snide comment, "So, when's our tour?" she just smiled. "Actually," she said, loud enough for the whole class to hear, "we're doing something better. This Saturday, my mom arranged for our team to video call a real NASA scientist during their work. They're going to walk us through what they're doing live." The room exploded. "What? No way." Even Tyler looked stunned. Ria grabbed her arm. "Is this for real?" She nodded, grinning. Turns out, my mom does have some pull. Mr. Hayes looked impressed. That's an incredible opportunity. Well done. As the class buzzed around her, the girl finally felt it, the shift. Not just in how they saw her, but in how she saw herself. She hadn't needed to beg for respect. She'd earned it. But as she glanced at Tyler's shocked face, she realized something else. The game wasn't over yet. The morning of the video call arrived, and the girl's stomach twisted with nerves. She double-checked the link, tested the microphone, and rearranged the classroom chairs for the 10th time. Rhea nudged her. Relax. It's gonna be awesome. But as students filed in, even kids not in their class, drawn by rumors of a NASA call, she spotted Tyler whispering to his team. They kept glancing at a large, covered object at the back of the room. Whatever they'd built for the science fair, they were hiding it like a secret weapon. Mr. Hayes clapped his hands. All right, let's get started. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly, there was Dr. Alvarez, a propulsion specialist at NASA, wearing a headset in front of a bustling lab. Hello, future scientists. The class erupted in cheers. For 20 minutes, Dr. Alvarez showed them real-time data from a satellite mission, answered questions, and even floated a pen in zero gravity to demonstrate physics. The girls' team grinned as their classmates gasped. This was real science, not just textbook diagrams. Then came the moment she dreaded. Any final questions? Dr. Alvarez asked. Tyler's hand shot up. Yeah. How do we know she's not just pretending? He jerked a thumb at the girl. Maybe this is all staged. The room went dead silent. Dr. Alvarez blinked. I assure you, I'm very real. Not you, her. Tyler crossed his arms. She acts like she knows all this NASA stuff, but she's just riding her mom's coattails. The girl's face burned. Rhea looked ready to throw a chair. But Dr. Alvarez just smiled. Tell me, Tyler, what's your project about? Tyler faltered. Rocket fuel efficiency. Great. Explain the combustion cycle to me. Silence. Tyler's mouth opened, then shut. Dr. Alvarez turned to the girl. What about you? Explain how thrust works in space. She didn't hesitate. No air means no resistance, so rockets use Newton's third law, equal and opposite reactions. The exhaust pushes backward, the ship moves forward. A beat. Then Dr. Alvarez nodded. Correct. And that's how you know she's legit. The class burst into applause. Tyler slouched in his seat. But as the call ended, Tyler suddenly stood. Fine. But our project's still better. He yanked the cover off his team's display, a intricate, remote-controlled rocket model. Watch. He pressed a button. The rocket's engines whirred, then sputtered. Smoke poured out. The fire alarm blared. Chaos erupted. As teachers herded everyone outside, the girl caught Tyler's stricken look. His perfect project had literally crashed and burned. Later, while waiting for the all-clear, Rhea snorted. Karma. But the girl hesitated, then walked over to Tyler. Your design was actually cool, she said quietly. The fuel mix was just off. Tyler stared at her. Why are you being nice? She shrugged. Because science is hard. Anne. I get why you didn't believe me. For the first time, Tyler's defensive smirk faded. My dad's an engineer. He always said girls don't belong in STEM. He kicked a pebble. I guess I wanted you to fail so he'd be right. The admission hung between them. Before she could reply, the bell rang. But as Tyler walked away, he paused. For the record, your mom's job is pretty cool. It wasn't an apology. But it was a start. The day of the Science Innovation Fair arrived, and the gymnasium buzzed with energy. Students rushed to put final touches on their projects, adjusting posters, testing demos, nervously rehearsing presentations. The girl and her team had spent weeks perfecting their model of the International Space Station, complete with tiny astronauts and a working mini airlock made from recycled materials. As they set up, whispers spread through the crowd. "Did you hear? Tyler's team got reinstated." Ria's head snapped up. "What? How?" A classmate shrugged. "His dad complained to the principal. Said the fire alarm was an unforeseen technical issue, not a rule break." The girl's stomach dropped. She glanced across the gym. Tyler was already smirking in her direction, his rebuilt rocket model gleaming under the lights. Mr. Hayes clapped his hands. "Judges are arriving in 5 minutes. Everyone to your stations." Ria groaned. "This isn't fair. They literally almost burned down the school." Leo adjusted his glasses, pragmatic as ever. "Focus on our presentation. Their rocket won't matter if we blow the judges away." But as the judges, a mix of teachers and local engineers, began making rounds, tension thickened. Tyler's team went first, delivering a slick presentation about fuel efficiency. Their rocket didn't ignite this time, but it did launch a small payload, a marshmallow, impressively high. The judges nodded approvingly. Then it was their turn. The girl took a deep breath and began. "Living in space isn't just about rockets, it's about surviving in an environment that wants to kill you." That got everyone's attention. They demonstrated how astronauts slept in Velcro sleeping bags, showed footage of food floating in zero-G, and even had Jake wear a bike helmet with a GoPro to simulate a spacewalk. The crowd laughed when Leo deadpanned, "Yes, Space P is exactly as complicated as you're imagining." The judges were scribbling notes when the gym doors burst open. "Sorry I'm late." Every head turned. The girl's mom stood there, still in her NASA work badge and holding a large case. "I brought show and tell." Murmurs erupted as she unlatched the case, revealing a chunk of charred, twisted metal. "This," she announced, "is a piece of the Space Shuttle Columbia's heat shield. It protected astronauts during re-entry at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit." The room collectively gasped. Even the judges leaned in. But then a new voice cut through the awe. "Impressive. But is this really appropriate for a school fair?" A tall, stern-faced man stepped forward, Tyler's dad. His sharp gaze swept over their project. "My son's team actually engineered something. This is just storytelling." The air went electric. The girl's mom didn't miss a beat. Engineering means nothing without understanding the human element. That heat shield? Someone designed it so people could come home alive. She locked eyes with Tyler's dad. Science isn't about showing off. It's about solving problems together. A judge, an older woman with a NASA pin on her blazer, cleared her throat. "I think we've seen enough." As the judges huddled to deliberate, Tyler shuffled over. "For what it's worth, your project was actually good." He glanced at his scowling father, then added quietly, "Better than ours." Before the girl could respond, the head judge announced, "We've made our decision." The gymnasium fell silent as the head judge, the woman with the NASA pin, stepped forward. The girl held her breath, fingers gripping the edge of their project table. Next to her, Ria muttered, "If they pick Tyler's team after all this, I'm gonna lose it." But the judge didn't announce a winner yet. Instead, she turned to Tyler's father with a piercing look. "Mr. Carter, was it? You're an engineer, correct?" Tyler's dad straightened his tie. "Senior project manager at Aerotech. 23 years experience." The judge nodded slowly. "Then you of all people should know that science isn't a zero-sum game. Your son's rocket was impressive, when it didn't catch fire." A few kids snickered. But this, she gestured to the girls' team's ISS model, shows something equally vital: why we explore space. Tyler's face flushed. His father opened his mouth to argue, but the judge kept going. "And young man," she said to Tyler directly, "your question during the NASA call? About proving someone's credibility?" She raised an eyebrow. Real scientists ask questions, but they also know when to listen. Tyler looked down at his shoes. His father's jaw tightened. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. After deliberation, the judge announced, "We're awarding first place to..." A dramatic pause. Both teams. The room exploded in confused cheers. "What?" Tyler's dad spluttered. The judge smiled. "The rocket demonstrated technical skill, but the space station showed us the heart of NASA's mission. So here's the prize, a tour of the aerospace lab and..." She pulled out 2 envelopes. Summer internships for both team leads at the NASA Outreach Center. The girl's mouth fell open. Tyler looked like he'd been hit by a tranquilizer dart. But the real shock came when Tyler's father suddenly grabbed his son's arm. "Absolutely not. Tyler doesn't have time for..." "Dad, stop." Tyler yanked his arm away, voice cracking. "This is all you ever wanted, for me to be the best. But I lied about building that rocket. Jason and Miguel did most of the work while you yelled at me." The gym went dead silent. Tyler's father froze. The girl had never seen an adult look so small. The NASA judge stepped between them. "Mr. Carter, perhaps we should discuss this privately." As she led them away, the girl caught Tyler's glance, half terrified, half relieved, like he'd finally put down a backpack full of rocks. The crowd buzzed with gossip, but the girl barely heard it. Her mom squeezed her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded numbly. Winning felt complicated now. Then Rhea hooped, snapping her out of it. "We get to touch real space stuff." Jake started doing victory laps around their project while Leo calmly informed everyone that statistically, they were now 27% cooler. Laughing, the girl turned to her mom, and froze. Her mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," her mom said softly, "when we get home, we need to talk." That night, sitting on her bed, the girl braced herself. "Am I in trouble?" Her mom sat beside her. "Of course not. But..." She took a deep breath. "That internship means working where I work. Being the NASA kid forever. Is that really what you want?" The question hung in the air like a satellite in orbit. The truth? She didn't know. The NASA Outreach Center smelled like coffee, printer toner, and the faint metallic tang of machinery. The girl trailed behind her mom through buzzing corridors, trying to absorb everything: engineers debating over blueprints, interns hunched over glowing monitors, a harried-looking scientist cursing at a vending machine that had stolen their dollar. This wasn't the NASA of glossy documentaries. This was real. Her mom stopped at a cluttered workstation. "My desk," she said wryly, nudging a precarious tower of paperwork. 50% advanced math, 50% begging the budget office for more highlighters. For hours, the girl shadowed her, sitting in on a meeting where grown adults argued passionately about duct tape, its space-grade adhesive, watching her mom troubleshoot a satellite simulation that kept crashing, even fetching coffee for a visiting astronaut who turned out to be surprisingly bad at operating the break room Keurig. By lunch, her head spun. Her mom slid a cafeteria tray toward her. "So? Still think my job's cool?" The girl poked at her rubbery pizza. "It's just different than I imagined." Her mom took a bite. "When I was your age, I thought NASA was all rocket launches and Mars rovers. Didn't realize I'd spend 80% of my time in meetings about funding." A pause. Then, "Would you hate me," the girl blurted, "if I didn't take the internship?" Her mom's eyes softened. "Oh, honey. I've been hoping you'd say that." "What? You're 15. You shouldn't be locking yourself into my world yet." Her mom leaned forward. "Besides, I heard you talking to Ria about marine biology last week. Sounded pretty passionate." The girl blinked. She had been obsessed with that documentary. Her mom grinned. "The ocean's just space with better water pressure. Follow that if it calls to you." The next morning, Tyler waited at her locker. She braced for a snide remark. Instead, he shoved trembling hands in his pockets. "Can we talk?" They sat on the empty bleachers. Tyler spun his internship envelope between his fingers. "I'm not taking it." She blinked. "Why not?" "Because you were right." He stared at the football field. "I don't even like aerospace." "My dad does." A bitter laugh. "Funny, huh? I gave you hell for riding your mom's coattails, but I've been strapped to my dad's ego my whole life." The girl studied him, the dark circles under his eyes, the way his knee bounced anxiously. For the first time, she saw him. Not the bully, just another kid drowning in expectations. "So what do you like?" she asked. Tyler hesitated. Then, quietly, "Photography. I've got this Instagram where I shoot, like, bugs and stuff. Macro lenses." "It's dumb." "It's not." A realization struck her. "Wait, you took those close-up shots of our ISS model, didn't you? The ones Mr. Hayes used for the school site?" He flushed. She grinned. "Dude. You made our hot glue monstrosity look professional." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension easing. Then Tyler cleared his throat. "So. I had an idea. The science fair prize money? What if we combined it?" "For what?" "A community project. You teach a space science workshop for little kids at the library. I'll handle photos and promo." He met her eyes. "No parents. No pressure. Just sharing what we actually care about." The girl felt something unlock in her chest. "Deal." On the last day of school, the girl pinned up 2 letters. A thank you to the NASA judge, declining the internship but asking to volunteer at their youth outreach events. A sign-up sheet for Adventures in Science. Her and Tyler's new summer workshop. Ria signed first, of course. Leo added a footnote about orbital mechanics. Even Jake scrawled his name, though his E was a doodle of a farting rocket. As the bell rang, the girl took one last look at the classroom where everything had changed. No one laughed at her now. But better than that? She didn't need them to believe her anymore. She already knew who she was.